They didn't want to be left in charge of the horse. That was one thing, and the building the load was quite skillful as well. Like my mother always forked it off the field because she didn't like building the loads, and she didn't particularly care for leading with the horse either. It's quite hard work, you see, because, well, my father's brother got another farm, and of course they worked together at times. And whatever house they were at, the wife of the house usually forked to the stack, and the other wife got out to the field and could either build loads or fork sheaves. Well, my mother always forked all the time, whether she was here or at her brother-in-law's house, you see, for she forked to the screw here and to the field there, for the simple reason she wouldn't build the loads. Oh, it was an awful skilled job. I used to be able to build loads, but I preferred it, but it's an awful disgrace if your load fell off, you can. And the men were half mad, for they wouldn't wanted to fork it over twice, you can. Well, you see, it didn't change much from my mother, actually, to me, except, well, of course, I came on the binder age and so on. Yeah. The first of me working, we still had a reaper, you can. But, well, bairns would be putting to mark bands, or if the bairns were at the school, the wife gathered them. The men always drove the horse and the reaper. I can't mind you tend to be a very sort of masculine woman to drive a horse and a reaper, you can. Or for that matter to scythe, you can. Scything was very hard work too. Yeah. And the gathering after the scythe was not very fine. Some men were good scythers, you can, and you got lovely pieces you just could lift lumps so and gather, and you had a sheaf in no time. Like my father was left-handed and was working the wrong way for him, you see. You couldn't get a left-handed scythe or a scythe that worked in the other direction then. So he was not very good to gather after. Sometimes with a gathering like that or after the reaper, the women would do the stooking too. But very often at night the men would come out and do the stooking, you can. When they were cutting by the reaper, they had a sheaf board on it, you likely heard, and they put off what they considered was enough for a sheaf with a sort of long brake thing that they held in their hands. I don't know if it had a special name, I've never heard of it did. Anyway, I'll maybe come up with something later on. They put off a sheaf size thing, and you came to this, and the first thing you did was to make your band. You picked a nice bit and you made your band and laid it alongside, and then you gathered it up, laid it on the band, tied it up, and that was your sheaf done, and on to the next one. Yeah. The men would maybe come by and they were awful disgusted if the sheaf fell to pieces, you see. So sometimes rather than risk that, you just leave it and they would come up along and bind them after. But if the crop was quite nice, tidy, standing crop, you just did the whole thing. We shared work. Yes, we had a boy here a wee while, and then when I came to come home, we didn't have anybody for a long time then again. Well, there was still the roads to be open, so that was the scything as before, you can.
Do women do it too, sometimes?
Oh yes, always did, yes. When the men went out to cut the roads, the women always went out together. Unless it came a spell of, bad weather and they were a bit ahead of themselves. But if there was a rush on and a lot of good weather, the women were always out and gathered the sheaves behind the men. And of course the men could cut more than you could gather till they would help a bit in the end. And the men we had, if there was any bad lying bit, that was always cut out with size too before the binder came along. Yeah. But the binder, I only discovered it, I said when I got to be older, was just a big cone trick you came for the men, work the tractor and binder. And if you were lucky, none of the older women could drive anything, you see, but they occasionally let me drive the tractor. But anyway, it's only when I came just to be my husband and myself here, he drove the tractor and I sat on the binder. And it wasn't all that terribly difficult, you can once you learn the way and so on. Because, like when my father and uncle were, my uncle drove the tractor and my father sat on the binder and his women always stooked, you can. It's quite a long, heavy day, stooking all day. It's a lot of walking, you can. And we always did the stooking, but it transpired that, one of them could quite easily be bindering and the main to not turn at the stooking too. But of course, you see, if the whole thing stopped, we had no idea what was wrong with it, you can. Whoever was going with it was responsible for keeping it going. My father was...
Well, the first I can remember we harvest, it was just the reaper, and like here, my father he had a servant man besides himself, and then they usually had another man for the harvest besides.
So and when you say another man employed specially for the harvest?
Yeah, just for the harvest, and there was a lot of tradesmen used to do that. Sometimes maybe like joiners or masons, maybe at that time work was slack and they would take a harvest. Well, a harvest usually lasted 6 weeks. It's just general. And I can remember it was all cut with a reaper and the 2 horse, and it's no the actual time it takes to do the work. It's with the combine it needs to be fairly ripe, and when they was cutting with the binder or with the reaper, they could cut it greener, and the old people always used to say it was writing in the stoke, and